I don't know, like I had this, yeah, epiphany, and it was like, I don't know what it was coming from outside, like an idea. And that was the ending of my movie. Everything after was basically just for me searching an artistic process to, you know, find a way to get to that ending of the movie.
Is er iemand met wie dat je over deze dingen kunt praten?
Well, for me, I like to work within sports because for me it's almost like a metaphor for society, but you can really be concrete because you can work, I don't know, like with kind of like the bigger structures, but you know, imply them in a small structure. It becomes, you know, really a story about daily life. It becomes a story about you and me rather than, you know, there. So for me, that's a great occasion to really address topics that, you know, that we are struggling with. At the same time, I also think that, you know, when addressing these kind of subjects, it's handy to do it in the world of sports because it's such an audiovisual world. So there is lots of opportunities to do something cinematic, you know, in terms of shots, in terms of pace, in terms of sound. The fact that she is that dedicated to that sport and that she really likes it and that, you know, she really does it for herself. It has something very playful even, because that's why she works that hard. And when she goes to the court, she can forget everything for a minute. The struggle of, you know, that Julie has in the personal life, you know, the sport is not a metaphor for that. It's not like, you know, I'm in pain and so, you know, I'm gonna now, I'm gonna go in it and I'm gonna numb, you know, this pain with physical pain. I did not want to do that. And for me, the sport was not about self-harm. It was kind of about healing, because she has a place to go where she can escape, where she can be free, where she can breathe. For me, in that way, what I try to do with the tennis, I think I try to gradually bring lightness into it. Well, Tessa walked in, I think on day 2 already from the casting. And there was just something about her that when she left the room, we all felt incredibly happy. And then for me, there was this thought, what if this, you know, this person would be in a situation like Julie? And it made me incredibly sad. For me, that was really important to find somebody with that energy, that she can, you know, address both stories to it. The lightness, but also the heaviness. To then, you know, like, because I already knew it was her. I mean, there was no doubt. But I felt like I cannot, you know, like now do like, hey, you got a role. The question was, would you like to consider the role? But I don't need an answer now. Let's try this. And then, you know, in a month, in 2 months, if you somehow know how it's going to be like, then I will ask you again the question, what do you think? Do you feel like doing it? And there was one thing that sounds bizarre, but I told them I was doing exactly the same thing with 2 other girls. So she always had the freedom to say no, even though, you know, if she would have said no, I would not have a main character, so it was a bit of a risk. But I felt in a weird way like this was more honest to do, to pretend, you know, that you are still, you know, like searching. Well, you know, I knew that she was going to be the star, and she did a fantastic job. I knew that it was going to be like that, but I just felt like, you know, she can never have the pressure on her to like, this is the movie, this is Julie, it's your responsibility to make it happen. I was like, this is my responsibility, and I want everybody in it to be safe. I mean, I think we both felt somehow that Julie's silence was important, and that everything in the movie should be well considered. And the fact that you shoot on film, you don't have really much time to, you know, like play around. Everything, especially because we did not have a big budget, and some people said like, you're crazy that you're gonna spend it on shooting on film. But you know, it was not for us really about, like, let's just say, like the texture or the aesthetics. It was really kind of like an approach, to that silence, because indeed, like, like every roll of film that you open, needs to be valued. I mean, like, there needs to be a reason for it. Every sigh, every tear, every smile needed to be considered, because it was like, we need this exactly at this moment in the film. It goes a bit hand in hand with the personality of Julie, because she's also kind of precise. She's, like, in that way, like, she's a tennis player, like, it's about the technique, it's about being sharp, to be on point. I think the biggest lesson that I learned making this movie is that true agency is about allowing somebody to say, I don't know, or I'll think about it. Because I feel like, sometimes in toxic situations, it's much about yes or no. And a safe, relationship is that always that possibility about maybe. And for me to discover that was also great for me, because when I was on set, I dared often to say, I don't know yet. Well, sometimes as a director, you feel pressured to pretend that you know everything. And it was in that way also, like, by, approaching how can I give this young actors agency, I also somehow allowed myself to have agency to make this movie.